Hey y'all, I am back with another astrological case study. So let me just share my screen. And this case study is called Dark Hearts, the Dark Side of Adoption, an astrological case study. So some of my viewers may have already heard about this story. I heard about it when it first went down back in 2018, but there was, in my opinion, there was not a lot of media coverage over this story. I think it should have got more media coverage, is what I'm really trying to say. So this story came back to me about a month ago through one of my clients because she sent me a link to a video on narcissism, because both me and my client, we are like fascinated by the whole narcissistic personality disorder. So we be sharing links to videos and stuff. So in this one particular video, the person that recorded the video, they mentioned Jennifer Hart as being a classic case of a narcissist. So Jennifer Hart and Sarah Hart were two adoptive mothers. They were a lesbian couple, and they adopted 6 children. And it came to find out that they were very abusive towards these children and very neglectful. So when they were under the radar, or when they were found out to be neglectful and abusive, CPS stepped in. Next thing you know, these two women are on the run with the children in tow, and they drive off of a cliff to their death. So this is a case of murder suicide. So let's get into it. Now, this Broken Hearts is a very good account of the story. So you can find this on YouTube. So you can listen to the full story via YouTube. It's like in 9 parts. So it's very well done and it's very concise. It will provide a lot of details that aren't readily available in other news stories. So definitely check this out if you want to get the full story on the Hart women. And just real quick, here's a little snippet that I found. It says the jury decided the 6 children, 12 to 19, because there was a coroner's inquest that occurred in 2019 investigating the accident to determine whether it was murder suicide or whether it was just an accident. So the jury decided the 6 children, 12 to 19, die at the hands of others and not by accident. Authorities had indicated they believed the crash was deliberate but wanted a jury to make official findings. A special coroner's jury in California ruled the deaths of 2 women and their 6 adopted children was a murder-suicide after hearing harrowing testimony about their deaths. Sarah and Jennifer Hart with their 6 children. So here they are right here. And I found this via Google Images, but this is very telling because before I even found this image, I was like, this is very reminiscent of that movie, Thelma and Louise, the way they drove off the cliff. If you've never seen that movie, Thelma and Louise basically are about these 2 women that commit a murder. They're on the run, and then they drive off of a cliff at the end when the heat is on them and the cops are pursuing them. So the interesting thing is Jennifer Hart, the one on the left, she was a big time movie buff, and her Pisces South Node points to this. Also, Sarah's South Node was in Pisces as well, so I'm going to get into that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they did get the idea from the movie Thelma and Louise. Here's Jennifer Hart's chart. As you can see, she was born June 4th, 1979, Gemini. I don't have her birth time or Sarah's, but you can still glean a lot of information just by seeing these planets in aspect. So about Jennifer Hart's chart. So again, Jennifer Hart was born June 4th, 1979. That 4 corresponds to her being a lesbian, but also a social media ham, namely on Facebook, because she was always posting updates on Facebook about her family and the activities that they were involved in. Also, 4 can make a person very willful. On the dark end, it can make them a dictator. Also, 4 is related to activism, and also it can produce a sense of entitlement within that person. Jennifer's life path number is 9. That can make her very self-determined, but also destructive and conflict driven. Also, where she can have a violent streak and how this could color her life. Her Sun and Mercury and Gemini are opposing her Neptune. This deals with her adopting children because Neptune's in Sagittarius. Both Neptune, Jupiter, Sagittarius, and Pisces, they all come under the whole adoption, foster care theme. So adopting children but not developing close ties, living a lie, which is indicative by all the photos and videos, writing all those fake posts, writing the script. Now, Geminis can be very good writers, and she did write very extensively about the goings on with her family, the activities they were involved in, and she wrote it like she was some kind of author. If you look at some of the posts that she created, very long, very detailed, but some of it was very poetic, and it seemed like she was a writer. So you can really see the fakeness in her writing. Also, where she had her friends fooled, this can also make her delusional, lacking a strong sense of self. Also points to the victimization of children because the sun represents children. It also points to her escaping, fleeing, driving off the cliff. That was her doing, and that deals with that Mercury opposition, Neptune in particular. A remnant of her Pisces South Node, basically, because that Pisces South Node will cause somebody to go into escape mode when the heat is on them. Narcissistic aspect. So that Sun opposition, Neptune in particular, that's a narcissistic aspect. Not in all cases, but in some, because it can produce delusions of grandeur, which is one of the traits of narcissistic personality disorder, or I should say one of the indicators. Also, this could point to her need for self-glorification. Also, where she has symptoms of borderline personality disorder. Also, where she is basically batshit crazy. Now, the alcohol facilitated the suicide, homicide. Alcohol enabled her to dissociate. So with this opposition, a person really shouldn't be a drinker or a major drug addict or drug taker because they can actually dissociate and lose their sense of self completely. They could also have these blackouts as well. Now, it was reported that she was not a drinker, and that's probably because of the dissociation thing. She probably had drank in the past and found that she was not herself at all. And, that's probably why she avoided alcohol. But on the day that she drove over the cliff, she was drunk. So the alcohol definitely enabled her to dissociate to the point where she could do such a thing because people, and I was even questioning, like, how could somebody do such a thing? Like, just drive over a cliff. But with this opposition, yeah, it's definitely possible if the person takes some type of drugs or alcohol. Now, she was also a thief. At one point, she stole a pair of sneakers and 25 sports playing cards. And when she was questioned about why she did it, she was like, she doesn't even know why she did it. Her south node was at the 13th degree of Pisces. That 13th degree reinforces the death theme. It reinforces the lesbian theme. And it could cause her to go to extremes with lies, delusions, and victimization. Also, it could produce a savior hero complex, just the Pisces south node in general, and where she wanted to be glorified. And it could point to her posting all the photos on social media, the 13th degree of Pisces. Now, her Sun and Mercury are squaring her nodes. So this can point to where she had a tenuous grip on reality. Also points to the victimization of children, putting fear into them, keeping them isolated, fear of truth being publicized, sacrificing children, lack of boundaries enable her to kill the children too, drugging the children. So they gave the children Benadryl before they drove off the cliff. Photos and videos don't tell the real story, except for this one photo in particular. There's like a couple of photos that will really provide clues to what was really going on. Also, they ran the household, Jennifer in particular, like a regimented boot camp, and that's what somebody had mentioned, somebody that knew them. Also, and that deals with the sun being in square to the Virgo North Node in particular, because that Virgo can deal with the military, especially boot camp. Also, this can point to the photo with the boy and the cop being staged. So that was Devante. I'm going to show you that photograph. So some of you might have heard of the term virtue signaling. So that's exactly what Jennifer was doing by propping these children up. They were all children of color. Three of the siblings. So there was two sets of siblings. So the first set of siblings that they adopted were biracial, half white, half black. The second set were black. So they did this whole virtue signaling, trying to act like, they were really there for the kids and they were really about Black Lives Matter and justice and all this type of stuff. So they ended up uh, getting this photo with this cop during this rally for Michael Brown, the whole Ferguson incident. But the rally took place in Portland, Oregon. But I'm going to get to that in a minute. Also, this points to the alcohol influence basically taking over her ability to be rational. Here's Jennifer Hart right here, dark-sided Gemini. She has that Gemini look. Now, the eyes are the window to the soul, as they say. Look at her eyes. She has evil, cold eyes, especially this one right here. So she might be smiling, but even her smile looks very tense. But yeah, you know what they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. So her eyes are very telling. Now, Jennifer, Saturn was squaring her sun. That can make her cold-hearted, callous, heartless, controlling, unloving, vile, ugly, mean, vicious, where she hated the children. Death of children, that's a common aspect in charts where there's been a death of a child or children. Also, this can make her sadistic. This points to her starving the children, especially with Saturn and Virgo. So this points to them being nutrient deficient. And also Hannah, one of the children, climbed out of the window and went to the neighbors for help. So that sun in Gemini also represents the neighbor's influence, but it also represents a child too. So you could look at that as a child going to the neighbor's house for help. Devante, one of the boys, would ask the neighbors for food. So he started off asking the neighbors for tortillas. Then he started asking for like deli meats and stuff. And he asked if the neighbors could put the box by this gate or whatever. So the two women wouldn't find out. Abigail, which was one of the other girls, was found digging in the trash for food at school one day. And she ended up getting punished by Jennifer and Sarah for it. Now, this can also point to the neighbor's father. Neighbors are ruled by Gemini, contacting the police on one occasion. So that's on record. You can hear the recording if you listen to that. What's the name of that? Something Harts. If you listen to that Harts documentary on YouTube. Also, again, I don't know what time Jennifer was born, but I'm thinking that sure, so her moon could either be in Virgo or Libra. I'm believing that her moon was in Libra. And if so, that it would be forming a semi-square with her Uranus. So with that, she could be lacking a nurturing instinct, but also that moon in Libra points to where she needed a partner. It points to her being married to a woman, in her case in particular. So lacking a nurturing instinct, being cruel and tyrannical towards Sarah, her wife, not being fully comfortable with being an out lesbian. So when they first got together, Jennifer was telling people that Sarah was her roommate when they first became a couple. Also, CPS investigation prompted Jennifer to leave home. So here they are right here. To the left, here's Sarah. To the right, Jennifer. And here are the children. This is Marcus, because I've been researching this hard. So I memorized kids and who's who and all this. So this is Marcus, the oldest. This is Jeremiah. This is Sierra, Devontae. This is Abigail, I believe, and Hannah. And the crazy part about it is Abigail was younger than Hannah, but Hannah is very small and they were all underdeveloped, as I'll get into in a minute. So, virtue signaling progressives pulling off the great illusion courtesy of the Pisces South Node. These bitches were something else. So, I really feel some type of way about this story. It really touched my heart. And these women I'm talking about, they were like despicable. I wish I could have got my hands on them before they drove off that cliff. Okay, so Jennifer had Mars opposition Uranus. So her Mars in Taurus was opposing Uranus in Scorpio. And this can point to depersonalization. Also, where she has this mentality like the I ain't shit, so I treat others like they ain't shit type of personality. Also, where she has this fake identity, fake persona, phoniness, fake friend, uses friends and groups to validate herself, very superficial, but much is hiding beneath the surface. Persistent efforts to keep up with appearances so that could be on social media, namely Facebook. This can produce psychopathic tendencies because her Uranus is in Scorpio, also where she could be autocratic. Also, she probably really couldn't connect with Sarah either sexually, or sex must entail some form of pain and domination, perhaps choking. Psychic vampire, also where she was a loose cannon with nothing to lose at that point. Sudden death. Demonic influence could stem from sexual abuse in her early life. And where she's like, you know how, they say, don't pull on that loose thread. If you do with her, she will fully unravel, which is what she did once the heat came upon her. Also, this opposition makes it easy for her to dismiss people out of her life who are not in agreement with her. Now, their first adopted daughter, I think they adopted her when she was 15, was quickly dismissed over an autographed football that Jennifer coveted. So basically, they went to this football game and they were able to meet one of the football players, one of Jennifer Hart's favorite football player, and they both had footballs, but the football player only signed the adopted daughter's ball. And Jennifer had a serious problem with that. And shortly thereafter, they abandoned that girl. They gave her back to the foster care system. So this was the first daughter that they adopted. Now, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. Now, I'm also looking at this opposition as where that car crash may have snapped her neck. And upon hearing the coroner's report, that's exactly what happened. So it was a case of internal decapitation, and most of them ended up that way because the car ended up upside down when it fell. So it would make sense that they were all had that internal, or most of them had that internal decapitation. Her Venus was also opposing Uranus and Scorpio. So again, it reinforces the psychic vampire theme and demonic influence theme, and where she was basically feeding her demons. So you know how some people can have personal demons. Well, we all got personal demons, but some people's demons are more pronounced than others, and some people got more than others. You know how most of us try to keep our personal demons in check. Well, with this opposition, it was like she was just feeding the personal demons. And what really helped was Sarah's influence. Now, this also could deal with, again, her struggling with being an open out lesbian, also her being obsessed with trying to appear normal on social media, especially Facebook, again, being phony, artificial. Also, where the shocking truth is revealed, sullying the carefully crafted lifestyle and values that she portrayed. Her Venus happened to be conjoined to the asteroid Hopi, and that can deal with Native Americans, but also other discriminated races that have been discriminated upon, or also protected classes of people. So she really milked that to the hilt. Also, this shows where her being associated with a movement of virtue signaling progressives. So she was always going to these rallies and these festivals, and she was very much into this activism and stuff. Also, this could point to her being somewhat of a cult leader, and cult leaders often control their subjects with food. Also, where she objectifies people, she could easily dismiss people out of her life, like that Mars opposition Uranus aspect. And with this, you're either with her or against her. And this points to disloyalty on her part. Now, she was trying to push up on a mutual friend and started to become obsessed with the friend. Also, this shows where she can't be in a balanced relationship, and where the relationship is very lopsided, her being a dictator over her partner, dictating how the marriage is going to go, where she had this sense of entitlement towards what others have. She was receiving money from the state, but also, strangely enough, child support payments from what they called to be the stepfather of two of the children, which is I'm still kind of unclear on that. But she was getting money from various sources. Jennifer didn't work. Here is the infamous picture of Devante hugging the Portland cop during that rally for Michael Brown, the whole Black Lives Matter, whole activism thing. So people were remarking, not a lot of people fell for this picture. Like they were like, oh, that's so beautiful and stuff like that. But if you really look at Devante's face, this is the face of a broken child. And it looks like to me that he's really crying because he wish he could tell this cop what's really going on. He wish he could ask the cop for help, but instead he has to play this role, this virtue signaling role. Now check this out. Now Jennifer is seen apparently coaching Devante before the hug with the cop photo op. Check out Jennifer's expensive camera, which is very Pisces South Node. So this, like, basically it was all for show. And I found this quote. Also, just like Abiato, Riedlinger, the only other Black photographer at the protest that day, saw terror and trauma in Devante's eyes. He said, I would like to add that Devante was crying before approaching the officer while he was talking to his guardian, presumably because he was terrified. This brings the question of coercion to my mind, but I'll let y'all debate over it. Just look at her stance. Like, you don't even have to see her facial expression, but you could kind of see that she has tension in her face. But it does look like she is coaching him, and she's even perhaps using intimidation tactics. Again, just look at his face. This is a face of a broken child, like that photographer said. It's a face of a traumatized child, a child that feels helpless and hopeless. This is heartbreaking. Jennifer also had her Mars conjoined to Juno and Chiron in Taurus. This can produce a shell of a person who used her marriage as her main source of narcissistic supply or validation. Also, this is another cult leader configuration. Her way was not to be questioned. That's how Taurus rolls, especially when Chiron's involved. This can make her very uncompromising, extremely possessive, abusive, stubborn, unyielding, and superficial. Also, I see this as if I go down, we all go down mentality, especially when the opposition involving Uranus and Scorpio is taken into account. Now, Sarah was making all the money. Jennifer was basically living off Sarah and living off that money that she was getting from the state. Now, she was receiving child support payments from the stepfather of the children, as I mentioned. And again, this is kind of unclear about who this guy really was, like whether he was the real father or the stepfather. So this points to her being the exception to the rule when it comes to money. She was also getting money from the state of Texas, even though they weren't living in Texas. It was because they adopted the children out of Texas. So I believe it was the second set of children, the black children. So Devontae, Jeremiah, and Sierra. Chiron and Taurus squaring Jupiter and Leo, gaining custody of allotted children, being unreasonable and even abusive with feeding them, being a cult leader with children, inflicting wounds upon the children, curbing their freedom to a large degree, not feeding them despite having a refrigerator full of food. Also, there was this pizza incident that one of their friends had reported. And well, she didn't report it to CBS, but she recounted the story. So basically, they had a slumber party, and Sarah and Jennifer's friend ordered a bunch of pizza. And she said that Jennifer only allowed the kids to have one slice each, and it was like a very small slice. So after everybody went to bed, the children, being hungry, naturally raided the refrigerator and ate up all the pizza. So when the friend woke up and saw that all the pizza was gone, she asked her husband, she was like, "Did you eat all the pizza?" And he was like, "No." And when they found out the kids did it, the friend said that Jennifer gripped the kids up, laid them all down on an air mattress, and made them lay there for like 5 to 6 hours where they couldn't speak. And she had these blindfolds over their faces, these those sleeping masks. Now, if I was that friend, first of all, I would not allow some shit like that to go down in my house. So, but this just shows you that the people that they were associated with, a lot of them were those flaky type of virtue signaling progressives. And I'm not, saying all progressives are like this, but some of them lack judgment, or they lack the courage to stand up and say, when it comes to their peers, this is going too far, or this isn't right, or whatever. So yeah, that would have never went down on my watch. Jupiter and Leo conjoined to Lilith. Now, this aspect is really interesting, in my opinion, because I feel like it's more than meets the eye. Now, Lilith is a killer of children in terms of the mythology. So, this can point to her killing all the kids, being made a pariah once the truth comes out, a pariah even post mortem after death, where she may have felt like an outcast because of her sexuality, but it can also point to her celebrating sexual freedom. They went to Connecticut to get married. So, once they got married, they were out, they were out with their sexuality, and they were more so activists about, the free sexual freedom and all that. Also, this could deal with where they were standing behind Bernie Sanders at a political rally, and where that fits the liberal narrative. So Jupiter deals with politicians, and Bernie Sanders is a big time Democrat liberal. So, what better way to, you know, promote this whole liberal narrative by having a lesbian couple with a bunch of black children or children of color in the background. Also, this is the part that really gets me. I think Jennifer, or both Jennifer and Sarah, but I really think this was coming from Jennifer. I think Jennifer was trying to turn Devontae gay, or just into bait for sexual predators, because she had this free hugs campaign, and she only had it with Devontae. And that free hugs thing makes me very skeptical. First of all, if you have children, or one child in particular, why would you have that child have a sign around his neck talking about free hugs? First of all, you're supposed to protect your children with your life. So to have a child give out free hugs to strangers, like what kind of shit is that? So this is kind of reminiscent of the whole free love hippie movement with the free hugs. And I feel like Jennifer was so evil and sinister that she wanted sexual predators to prey upon Devontae. So like they were getting free fills and stuff like that. Also, there's a photo of him where he is dressed kind of like a girl. He's in this Libra bodysuit, and I heard that she had him wear that quite a bit. I'm gonna show you the picture. It's crazy. It makes I was like, what the fuck? So I have come to realize that a lot of predators and perverts are connected to these hippie progressive groups. That's why you got to take these groups with a grain of salt. These virtue signaling groups, and the ones that act like they're so tolerant, of, diversity and all this type of stuff. A lot of times I don't be buying that shit. Her Chiron was conjoined to Demeter. That's an asteroid that could deal with a child being taken away from the mother, child or children. So, but this can also deal with her keeping her children locked down. Well, I'm not saying her children because they weren't her children; they were adopted children. I won't even give her that, just do her that justice. But Demeter is that myth about her daughter being taken down to Hades, hell. So it can deal with the children being locked down, being put through a hellish situation, but it can also point to the adoption itself, kids being taken away from their birth mothers, and how it did more harm than good. It can also point to her being the exception to the rule with the race thing and the food issue, because this conjunction is in Taurus. Now, she claimed that they were vegetarian, but meat was found in the fridge once the police entered the home, and they were looking for two of the children that weren't found, um, near the Pacific Ocean down at the crash site. So here is the mother of Devontae, Jeremiah, and Sierra. Now, this is Sherry Davis. That's right. Their original last name was Davis, but the Harts changed it to Hart, of course. So Sherry Davis' children were forcibly removed from her home by Texas authorities due to her struggle with cocaine addiction. Now, Jennifer started making up all these lies about what the children went through when they were with the birth mother. And the aunt of the children and this attorney, they both denied a lot of Jennifer's claims, because Jennifer was claiming that Devontae had a gun to his head, and um, Devontae was born addicted to crack, which wasn't true, and all these other stuff, and like they were severely developmentally delayed. She said that with the other set of siblings they adopted, what was Hannah was obese when she first adopted her, which wasn't true. So Jennifer was a stone cold liar. She was a habitual liar, a compulsive liar. Her whole life was a lie. So here they are again. This is at the Bernie Sanders rally. This was about, I think this was a couple of days before they died. So Sun square Saturn, these children were all below the normal growth rate for their age. So Sun square Saturn could deal with that. A child that is developmentally delayed, or a child that, is malnourished. Here's a picture right here. Here is one of the most telling pictures. You see how skinny these children are. It's a clear sign that they were malnourished. Jennifer and Sarah would deprive the children of food as punishment. Here they are at one of them hippie festivals. Look at this bitch right here. I'm just, come on. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying all these people in this photograph are low down and shady and just out of touch with reality, but you got a lot of kooky people that are part of these movements like this. These virtue signaling progressives. But this is the picture I'm talking about. Look how they had Devontae dressed. And you see the sign, free hugs. You see this shit? Why would you put your child in a vulnerable position like that, where any stranger, any pervert can come up and hug your child? This just shows you how sinister Jennifer was, how diabolical she was. But here's Sarah up here. I'm not absolving Sarah from this either, because I see Sarah as just as evil and dark, which I'm going to get into her chart in a minute. But do you see how they had this boy dressed? I mean, come on. And this is what I mean. Like, all these people were oblivious to what was going on. They just thought it was the greatest thing. I'm still trying to figure out what this bitch's problem is. Like, she looked absolutely nasty. Now she's not part of the family. I guess she was just one of the festival goers. I'm just like, yo. But this picture says a lot. Look at this chick. She's all dazed and confused. I'm just like, but these are the type of people that were basically celebrating Sarah and Jennifer Hart, trying to make it seem like they were these great parents and they were these, heroes and saviors and all this type of stuff. Back to her chart. So Jennifer's Hart's sun was conjoined to the asteroid Atlantis. This could deal with the neighbor's father again. So the neighbor's father tries to drop a dime on those bitches, but it was not taken seriously by the cops. So again, that sun in Gemini can deal with a neighbor, especially a male neighbor. Neighbor sensing impending doom. Children in danger of destruction. Hannah trying to escape, because Atlantis can deal with destruction, but it can also deal with where you're trying to escape, where you sense impending doom. So Jennifer also sensing impending doom, resulting in her going into destruction mode. Her Neptune was opposed to Persephone. Persephone at the 18th degree of Gemini, again going up against the aunt who wanted one of her nephews and niece. She tried to get custody of her nephews and niece once the mother lost custody, but the adoption agency wouldn't let it happen, or the state of Texas, they sided with the Harts instead of the aunt. And to me, this is part of the whole virtue signaling thing, part of the whole politically correct. We're trying to we're trying to send a message that we're tolerant. Look at these wonderful lesbian mothers and all this stuff. Nothing against lesbians, because this really doesn't have nothing to do with the fact that they're lesbian. Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of lesbian mothers that provide really good homes for their adopted or biological children. But the fact that they were lesbian, I think that helped out their case a lot. That gave them leverage in these days and time. So this can also deal with her keeping kids locked down, Hannah trying to escape to the neighbor's house. So again, Persephone is connected to Demeter, also Ceres. Like these asteroids, Persephone, Proserpina, Ceres, and Demeter, they all deal with the same story, the mythology of a mother having her child taken away, and then the child is put through a hellish situation, or the child is locked down. This is interesting. When I saw this, I was like, yo, this is like dealing with fertility and shit. Because Siwa is an asteroid that represents fertility. So there were some documents that were retrieved from the couple's laptop, and it included an email from Jennifer Hart to a friend in March of 2009. This actually deals with two of these aspects. So I'll pull up the other one. 2009, saying that Sarah Hart was trying to get pregnant using donor sperm, which may have been a lie because it is Neptune. Or this could deal with a big disappointment and not being able to get pregnant because she wasn't able to get pregnant. So Mercury conjoined to Siwa. In an email to another friend later that year in July, Jennifer Hart revealed that Sarah Hart was pregnant, but that the doctor couldn't find the baby's heartbeat. The couple ended up losing the baby. So both of these can deal with this information right here. Mercury could join to see what this is her writing the emails and telling the story. That Neptune could deal with either she was lying about it or they actually did lose the baby because of the heartbeat or whatever like that. But this definitely deals with them trying to get pregnant. And I guess because they couldn't get pregnant on their own, they decided to adopt. Mercury was conjoined to the fixed star Bellatrix, and this can be a really shady star because it can deal with where you meet with success, but it's through the shadow, through some dark-sided means, or through some underhanded means, through some shady means. Also, it could point to Jennifer being loquacious, very talkative, which she was. Somebody said, one of their friends said that they were with her one day and Jennifer talked for like 5 hours straight, and that's just so Gemini. Also, she wrote lengthy posts, like I said, on Facebook. Also, Bellatrix can produce accidents and sudden dishonor. Mars is conjoined to Menkar. That's a fixed star that can point to her being a victim of her unconscious mind, where there's a sudden emergence of deep unconscious issues, but I like to say a sudden emergence of your dark side or your personal demons. It can also result in ruin and disgrace. Her Saturn was conjoined to Dhuban in Virgo. That's a fixed star that can deal with where you make a treasure out of something. So on the way to the murder-suicide cliff, Sarah was looking for shelter, no kill shelters, mind you, no kill shelters for their dogs. And I guess they found the shelters because the dogs weren't found in the crash. So this shows that she placed more value on the lives of those dogs than her own, than those children and themselves. But this can also deal with that photo with Devontae and the cops, since Dubon deals with, again, like I said, making a treasure out of something or treasuring something. And Virgo is one of the signs that deals with cops. Now let's get into Sarah Hart, dark side of Aries bitch. Poor kitty looks traumatized. So again, look at the eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. She's smiling, but it looks like a tense smile. There's tension around her eyes, and she just doesn't look like she's all there. So here's her chart. She was born April 8th, 1979. That 8 birth number can make her hardworking. She was the worker of the couple. She was the breadwinner. Because again, Jennifer didn't work. And I feel like Jennifer didn't work because she was so much of a sociopath that she couldn't get along with other people. Like she couldn't hold down a job long enough. And because she had that sense of entitlement anyway, she probably just felt like she shouldn't have to work. Can be sadistic with that 8 birth number. Not everybody that's born on the 8th can be sadistic, but the potential is there. And if we're talking about Sarah Hart, yes. Also, this can result in her being the punisher or just a punisher in general. And 8 can deal with deprivation, where you're depriving yourself or someone else of something. Also points to control issues as well. Did I mention prone to depression? I think I did. Her life path number is 11, which is so telling, considering her relationship, her marriage to Jennifer. This can produce conflicts involving the home, family, and parenting, but also where she's in a relationship where her individuality is stifled. 11 can also produce love triangles, and Jennifer was trying to step out on Sarah with a mutual friend. I think I already mentioned that. So Sarah's sun in Aries was in trine to Neptune in Sagittarius. So this deals with her ability to adopt the children and how it was very easy for her to adopt those children along with Jennifer. And they share this aspect in their synastry, which I'm going to get into shortly. Now, her sun in Aries is opposing Pluto and Libra. This is her being heavily influenced by others or external factors, or one person in particular, her partner. A lack of independence of action, also where she could be full of self-loathing, being a fraud. This can produce suicidal tendencies, and where her partner can bring out the worst in her. Power struggles involving children, the abuse of children. This also points to the criminal charges that were filed against her for abusing one of the children. This points to murder of children, also psychosis, and where she could be prone to just snap. Her sun in Aries is in quincunx to Uranus and Scorpio. I'm seeing this as the energy it takes to perpetuate a phony image. It was a lot for her. It could have been very frustrating for her at times. I feel like with Sarah, it was easier because Sarah had that heavy Neptune influence. So again, with Jennifer, Jennifer's son was a, did I say Sarah? I meant to say Jennifer. I feel like Jennifer, well, I know it was easier for Jennifer to keep up with the lies and portray this false image than it was for Sarah. So again, the energy it takes to perpetuate a phony image, that could have been a lot for her at times, but this can also point to her being antisocial, and it was reported that she damn sure wasn't as social as Jennifer was. Sociopathic tendencies, unstable personality, where she could be very indifferent with respect to desires and affairs of the heart, very cold, detached. Also, this is the death quincunx because of the way the planets are situated in the chart. So in this case, it can produce the sudden death of children because of the sun. And her Uranus was also opposing the fixed star Phaethon. I'm sorry, the asteroid Phaethon, which can deal with a car crash that is usually fatal. Feeling ostracized for being a lesbian. She may not have even really been into the lesbian life, but found it hard to resist Jennifer's influence. That's how I'm seeing it with this aspect. And they got together early on when they were both in college. And when you're in your early 20s, you still don't really know who you are fully. A lot of people really don't know who they really are to the fullest. So because she had sun opposition Pluto, and because Jennifer was such a dominant influence in her life, I wouldn't be surprised if Sarah was on the fence about being a lesbian, but basically because of Jennifer's influence, she just basically succumbed to it. Now, this can point to where her girlfriend or wife wields great influence over her. Also, where she had to continually subdue her own dominant nature because she is an Aries after all, when in this marriage/union. This can also point to her ostracizing the children and tyrannical control over children. So again, like the reports keep on like focusing on Jennifer, and I know that Sarah was more of the passive player in this, but make no mistake, she was just as evil and dark-sided. Her sun was in quincunx to the Virgo North Node. This is her having to assume a submissive position, especially to Jennifer. And this could have been a constant struggle for her because of her Aries sun. She probably took her frustration out on the kids. And this can also pertain to the strict routine they imposed upon the children, malnutrition of the children. Her South Node was in Pisces, just like Jennifer. But Jennifer's was at the 13th degree. That 13 is death. Sarah's was at the 16th degree. That's catastrophe. But it also represents the act of taking all the Benadryl before her death. So Jennifer got drunk, but Sarah chose to take a whole bunch of Benadryl. Also, this compounds a tendency towards lies, delusions, mental illness, scandal, victimization, and confinement. How they were confining the children. They didn't even let the children out by themselves. Even though these children were of an age at, a certain point where they were able to come and go on their own, but they didn't allow it. Her South Node is conjoined to Venus. This is her being very impressionable with respect to a partner's influence, fully merging with a partner, leading to the dissolution of the individual self. That goes back to her life path number of 11. Being in bondage to a partner, also where the burden of earning money is on her, and it represents all the photos and videos that created the illusion. Sarah's Venus is also conjoined to Jennifer's South Node. So this shows that they were the perfect match made in hell, and they came to do the devil's work. Mercury in Pisces squared by Neptune and Sag. This can deal with her being a natural born liar, her being prone to delusions, deception. Also points to her taking all those drugs. She could have been an alcoholic. They said that she did drink a lot of wine. Also, where she could have lacked a mind of her own. This can point to mental illness as well. Here's Sarah right here with 4 of the children. That's Sierra, Jeremiah, Devante, and I believe that's little Abigail. But as you can see, look at the looks on their faces. They look defeated. And she looks mad. She just looks like, bitch, if I was your size, I would take your ass down to Chinatown. The only one that looks a little bit engaged and looks a little bit, but he doesn't even look happy. And look at her face. She just looks like she feels like she's forced to sit here. And it looks like the way she's looking, the way Sierra's looking at Sarah, it's like I wouldn't be surprised if Sarah was monopolizing it. Is this a we thing? I think it's we. Probably Sarah was probably monopolizing the we game, and she looking at her like, bitch, you grown. Like, let us kids have some fun. Mercury and Pisces conjoined to Mars and Aries. So this could produce abusive tendencies in a person, but because her Mercury's in Pisces, her being secretly abusive aimed to intimidate and humiliate using the water torture method on one of the girls. Now, it came out, this is where Sarah, and I'm going to pull up the slide about that in a minute. So, Sarah ended up being charged with child abuse because she admitted to her holding a child down. I believe this was Abigail. It was either Abigail or Hannah, holding the child down and having water, like basically doing that water torture where they were running water over your face, which can make you feel like you're drowning. Now, some people are saying that Jennifer really did it, but Sarah took the rap. But in my opinion, I believe Sarah really did do this. Or this is what I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me just finish reading. So acts upon fear and delusions, a la Thelma and Louise. And I'm thinking it was probably her idea to drive off the cliff, even though Jennifer was at the wheel. So that was their escape plan. So all Sarah had to do was put the idea in Jen's head. And then bam, Jen is all for it. So again, they try to make it seem like Sarah was this like ultra passive person in this marriage. I'm not buying it. I believe that Sarah was like the brain behind a lot of the punishment. And I believe that, she was a lot of times the one putting ideas into Jennifer's head. With Jennifer being that life path 9, she was the one that would act on it. Now, Sarah was searching for information about suicide methods, Benadryl, and if drowning was painful on the day that they drove over the cliff. Mars opposition Estrella. This can deal with the great escape, going too far, going off the deep end, literally, going too far, especially with a partner's influence. And this is because Estrella is in Libra. Mercury parallel Hebe. Hebe's at the 9th degree of Sagittarius. Sagittarius deals with adoption. The idea to adopt children, but also drugging the children, also humiliating them, turning them into slaves, prisoners. And again, this could point to that one photo with Devante and the cop and how it was faked because her Mercury is in Pisces. So again, I'm seeing where Sarah was a lot of the brain behind like the punishment and stuff. Like she would probably come up with these elaborate punishments like, okay, well, don't feed them. And then Jennifer would be the one to carry it out. And Jennifer was the muscle of the two. Saturn conjoined to Thuban and Virgo, milking the photo op with the cop. Also, the photo of them being behind Bernie Sanders. Mercury equals media attention. Mercury contraparallel Asclepius. This could deal with mental health issues, but also the Benadryl that she took. Mercury conjunct Vesta, isolation tactics on the children, and being the one who was saddled with the burden of working in the relationship. So here's Sarah Hart mugshot. Here she is smiling in her mugshot. I didn't write this part. This is from a news story. Sarah Hart, here smiling in her mugshot, was arrested and charged with misdemeanor domestic assault and malicious punishment of a child December 27th, 2010. This is what I wrote. That smirk on her face is saying, you can't break me. Even in death, I believe she held on to this mentality. Now, for some, suicide is the ultimate act of defiance, which is very much Sun opposition Pluto. This is another telling aspect. Again, I don't know what time Sarah or Jennifer was born, so I can't tell you the exact degree that the moon is at, but I would think that this conjunction between the moon and Saturn was in effect in her chart. That would reinforce the energy of her 8th birth number. Can also produce a hardened personality, one that is prone to depression and pessimism, can be very stern, cruel, and sadistic, also masochistic. And this is one of the aspects that makes me believe that she was just as much as sadistic towards the children as Jennifer, and that she could have been the one really coming up with the punishments, but Jennifer being the one to mainly carry them out. Lacking happiness. unfeeling. Emotions are canned, rehearsed, forced, like that forced smile she would have on her face. Depriving nutrients, the punisher. So she was charged with malicious punishment. Let me just trying to go back. So here it is, misdemeanor domestic assault and malicious punishment of a child. So that moon conjoined Saturn can deal with malicious punishment, can be a perfectionist and very exacting. She was a breadwinner in the marriage. Also, this can point to where she can easily fall in line when someone else is over her, can result in attracting a very controlling wife who demands order and strict routines because the moon is representing Sarah's wife. Also, can it result in attracting a very controlling wife who demands order and strict routines? But I believe it was Sarah who devised the punishment tactics, with Jim being the main one to carry them out, as I was saying, because I was kind of like really, I was like really scratching my head when I was looking at their two charts because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, it looks like Sarah could be just as controlling and sadistic as Jennifer. But I do recognize how Sarah was the more passive one of the two. Neptune is squaring her Pisces South Node and Virgo North Node. Copious amounts of drugs were found in her system, active ingredient in Benadryl. I think it's dihepamine or something like that. Living a big lie, lacks coping skills. This could deal with her fleeing where the jig is up. The threat of imprisonment and humiliation triggers past life tendency to escape. So again, with Neptune squaring her Pisces South Node and Virgo North Node, she could have been the one that came up with the plan. Like, okay, it's just time to just fucking like, it's over. Let's just kill ourselves and the children, and that way the children won't be able to speak the truth when we're dead. They all have to go. This could point to somebody that lacks coping skills. So when the heat came down on them, she resorted to just, throwing in the towel. And because Jen was the activator in it, Jen was probably like, you know what, you're right. Fuck it. Let's do it. That 9 life path, let's do it. And nines, they don't really think, they just do. And that's why I was saying that I really see Sarah being the one that was like coming up with these schemes and these the punishments and the final punishment or the final escape. Here these two bitches go right here. Again to the left, Sarah, as you can see, that tense smile. Jennifer just got that crazy Gemini look, that dark-sided crazy Gemini look with the wonky eye. So let's get into their synastry. I'm not going to get too deep into this because a lot of their aspects, due to being born within 2 months of each other, the outer planets produce some of the same aspects in each other's charts, which is why I always caution people about getting with someone who was born within the same year. Sometimes it could be 2 up to 3 years if you have challenging aspects involving Neptune or Pluto impacting your sun, moon, ascendant, Venus, because that partner's outer planets are going to be making those same aspects to yours. So you got to be careful. That's why in some situations it's best to be in a relationship with someone who exceeds you in age, or you might exceed them in age by at least 5 to 7 years. Some people do well being born within the same year, but you got to take the aspects into account in the individual charts and as well as the synastry. So again, due to being born within 2 months of each other, the outer planets produce some of the same aspects in each other's charts. This explains why they acted in total unison. They validated and reinforced each other's dark side. So first, I'm just going to get into all the aspects that are echoing, the aspects in the synastry that are echoing the aspects in each other's natal charts. This is deep. But again, it's because they were born in very close proximity to each other. Sarah was born in April of 1979. Jennifer was born in June of 1979. So that's only 2 months away. Sarah's moon conjoined to Jennifer's Saturn. That echoes Sarah's natal aspect. Sarah's sun quincunx Jennifer's Uranus. That echoes Sarah's natal aspect. Saturn's sun trine Jennifer's Neptune. That enabled them to be the adoptive parents. That echoes Sarah's aspect. Sarah's sun opposition Jennifer's Pluto. So Jennifer was playing the role of Sarah's Pluto. She stepped right into it. She was playing the role. She was basically her personal demon in the flesh. So that echoes Sarah's natal aspect. Sarah's Venus conjoined to Jennifer's South Node echoes Sarah's natal aspect. Sarah's node square Jennifer's Neptune echoes Sarah's natal aspect. Here they are right here, 16 years of being together. 16, that's very telling. Catastrophe and how Sarah's South Node was at the 16th degree of Pisces. Sarah's Saturn squared Jennifer's sun. That echoes Jennifer's natal aspect. Sarah's Uranus opposition Jennifer's Venus echoes Jennifer's natal aspect. Sarah's Uranus opposition Jennifer's Mars echoes Jennifer's natal aspect. Sarah's Neptune opposition Jennifer's Sun and Mercury echoes Jennifer's natal aspect. So again, if you want some more insight into how these aspects are playing out, just rewind this video on the replay and go back to what I was saying about these aspects in their individual charts and how basically they came together and was able to activate these aspects and bring out the worst in each other. Sarah's node squaring Jennifer's Sun and Mercury echoes Jennifer's natal aspects. Sarah's Neptune quincunx Jennifer's Venus echoes Jennifer's natal aspect, feeding into Sarah's delusions. Now, here are some other synastry aspects. Sarah's Venus was opposed to Jennifer's Saturn. This is Sarah being under Jennifer's control. Also points to Sarah being the breadwinner, earning the money so Jennifer didn't have to work. Sarah's Venus squaring Jennifer's Sun. Jennifer's insensitivity, because she's a Gemini. Jennifer losing interest in Sarah. You know how Geminis could do. Jennifer started pushing up on a mutual friend, remember. Also, this could show where there was a lack of true devotion and where Sarah could be very passive at times in the relationship. Now, Jennifer was quoted as saying, "For quite some time, I have felt very underappreciated and taken for granted in our relationship and at times unloved," Jennifer Hart wrote. "While I know deep in my heart how much she loves me, she is just horrible about showing it. As a mom, I have felt that I have been raising the kids on my own." She admits this too. I guess that's a typo from the article, but I guess she was saying Sarah admits this too. Yeah, you see how it says spelled incorrectly. "While she loves them with all her heart, she has not been fully present with me or the kids," she wrote. Sarah's Mars sexually squared Jennifer's Uranus. This can point to disrupt. When I first saw this, I was like, and this is before I even found out they had problems in their relationship, because I specialize in synastry. So when I saw this, I was like, hold up, they didn't have such a good sex life. So I see this as disrupted or unfulfilling sex life, and where Sarah had a hard time expressing her individuality while being in this marriage, and where Jennifer wanted to do everything together with Sarah, where Sarah didn't have any free will of her own. And that same friend, however, described Jennifer Hart as manipulative and quite controlling in her relationship with Sarah Hart, and believed that Jennifer Hart seemed delusional. Also, Sarah's Mercury was in semi-square to Jennifer's Chiron. I see this as frequent disputes over money. They did have a lot of credit card debt. And crazy thing was they made a final credit card payment the morning that they drove over the cliff, that Jennifer drove over the cliff. Now, in the report, they were saying that they don't know if it was an automatic debit that came out or they actually made that payment. But I was like, wow. But they ran up credit cards and stuff. Now, a lot of people do that, but this could just show that, Sarah might have always been worried about Jennifer's spending habits. So here I put a double dose of evil. Sarah's Venus being conjoined to Jennifer's Pisces South Node. That's the main aspect that basically shows how they were enabled to operate as one and how they were just, on the same page all the time, and there was like no distinguishing between the two in terms of the way they approach life and the way they approach um, being these adopted parents. So Sarah was like basically totally gave herself over to Jennifer's delusions. Now, Sarah Hart searched suicide, drowning, Benadryl dosages, and overdose methods on the internet throughout the drive to California. California Highway Patrol investigator Jake Slate said she also queried whether death by drowning would be painful. Authorities recovered the deleted searches from her phone. Also, they both decided that this was going to be the end, Slate said, that if they can't have their kids, that nobody was going to have those kids. Now, that's where I think that he's wrong, because I don't believe they had that mentality. I believe they had the mentality where those kids meant nothing to them. So when their reputation was on the line, when their freedom was at stake, it was nothing for them to kill the kids because the kids didn't mean nothing to them anyway. They depersonalized those kids, they objectified those kids, they used those kids for self-glorification, namely Jennifer did. So when the whole thing went up in smoke, they just took everybody out with them because, again, those kids had no real identity according to these two bitches right here. Let me just play this video real quick.
Breaking news: murders have been raged in the coroner's inquest into Hart family deaths. This is 26 News at 5 o'clock. I'm being tilted for Jeff tonight.
I need to take a little break anyway.
The jurors decided that both the parents, Sarah and Jennifer Hart, died as the result of suicides. As for their 6 children, those jurors ruled that they died at the hands of another and that their deaths were not an accident.
And before the ruling today, we got the clearest picture yet of what happened during the crash that killed all 8 members of that family from Woodland. During today's hearing, multiple California investigators all concluded Jennifer Hart intentionally killed her family by driving off the cliff.
That was a 100-foot cliff.
I'm going to round these numbers: 1 mile per hour, 2 seconds at 17 miles per hour, and then 3 seconds as the vehicle is coming off this berm at 20 miles per hour, and then you have 4, 4.5, and 5 seconds as the vehicle is falling from the cliff edge. Timothy Roloff and the California Highway Patrol determined the Hart SUV went from standing still to gas pedal floor as Jennifer Hart sat behind the wheel, legally drunk. We have the vehicle going from 34% throttle to 100% throttle, and there's no subsequent application of the brake. And during that time, you're going from idling with the brake has been on, and now you're on the throttle, and the throttle is going to 100%. You're accelerating to 20 miles per hour as you head towards that cliff face. Our analysis of that data was that this was consistent with this being an intentional act.
All right. Just a couple more slides. Now, Jennifer was over the legal alcohol limit when she drove off of this cliff right here. As you can see, that is a long ass drop. So they knew what they were doing. They knew that this would lead to their death and the death of those poor children. And again, like I said, I don't believe it was a situation where if we can't have the kids, nobody can. It was more about they didn't see those kids as even human. They were just objects to them. And so it was very easy for them to take their lives along with their own. Here is the picture of the SUV that crashed. As you can see, it's right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. Transits on the day of the murder-suicide. So this took place on March 26, 2018. 26 is a number of partnership. Now, transiting Mercury was retrograde in Aries. It was opposing both of their Plutos. Now, Jennifer's transit, Mercury opposition Pluto, was exact on March 20th. And this was around the time that the neighbor's report triggered a CPS investigation. And on March 25th, it became exact again, 1 day prior to the death. So this can point to where Jennifer and Sarah felt a sense of futility, with suicide being a viable option or maybe the only option. planning the murder suicide, going to extremes, going off the deep end, literally, being found and declared dead, media reports, controversy. Transit Mercury was conjoined to Phaethon. Not Jennifer's Phaethon or Sarah's, but Phaethon in terms of transit. So this can produce a deadly car crash or where a car is actually falling out of the air. Jennifer was in the midst of her Neptune square Sun transit. The walls were closing in on her. Neptune had also crossed over Jennifer's South Node, activating the South Node tendency to escape, evade capture. Neptune was approaching a conjunction with Sarah's South Node. South Node tendency to escape, evade capture was triggered. Transiting Neptune was conjoined to transiting Juno. This could deal with a tragedy at the hands of a crazy couple. Transiting Jupiter in Scorpio was retrograde at the time of the crash and was opposing Jennifer's Venus. This could deal with the CPS investigation. Being exposed caused her to flee. So here it is right here, the 6 children. I feel like this photograph is very telling. They are looking out at a bleak, cold landscape that's dark and only partially lit by the sun. So rest in peace, Sierra, Abigail, Devontae, Jeremiah, Marcus, and Hannah. I actually shed a few tears over this story. I think it was yesterday. And it just breaks my heart how these children, not just their death, but their life was so tragic. And I don't know how situations like this can be prevented in the future. They really do need to vet these adoptive parents more and these foster care parents, because there are a number of stories of foster care children being abused, adopted children being abused. But the system really failed these children. The main culprits, of course, are Jennifer and Sarah Hart. But if it wasn't for the loopholes in the system, maybe these kids would still be alive. So let me know what you think. Um, as you can see, I made this into a premiere, so um, I'll be looking to see. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments and things like that. Now, if you would like a reading, you could go to my website at rabina.com. Also, I'm putting on a workshop. Uh, this workshop is going to be on the lunar nodes, North Node and South Node. I'm going to give you the real on how they operate, how they can manifest in your life. Excuse me if I'm like kind of stumbling over my words, because I'm still like really broken up over this story. I'm an empath, so when I was reading the accounts and stuff, my heart was like breaking, like something terrible. But anyway, I am putting on this workshop. It's going to be held October 20th, which is a Sunday. That's the day of the awakening. So definitely, if you're interested in finding more about the North and South Node, and if you would like a personal reading that is included in the workshop involving how the nodes impact your life and whether you're leaning more towards that South Node in or the North Node in, or whether you have a nice balance between the two. I'll let you know that in the personalized reading. So I'm going to leave the link to my website as well as to the workshop Eventbrite site so that you can purchase a ticket. I'll be back soon with another live stream. I wanted to go live last night, but something came up, so I couldn't go live. So I apologize for those who I said I was going to go live, but y'all know how I am right now. Y'all can't really, hold me to a live stream, because the way my life is, something is always bound to come up at times. So that's why I don't really be posting like the notifications well in advance saying I'm going to go live and all this stuff. But anyway, peace, many blessings. I hope that you I don't want to say enjoyed this case study, but I hope you found it to be insightful and enlightening. I'll be back with some more videos.